I'm missing the
And then
bit.
the other part.
I don't remember that.
No, nothing.
No.
All right, so welcome to Julia Pop, of course. We have a topic. The topic is the Olympics, and you might wonder, hang on, I'm glowing a bit because of these glasses, probably. So, but welcome to Julia Pop. We are going to talk about pop culture and how the Olympics has affected that. So,
These
give me
glasses
just a
are
moment
very
as I work at.
comfortable.
No, try those. See if the other ones do better. And there's a lot of glare. That's why I wasn't able to really pull those off myself. But so
Oh yeah,
that's
that's
better.
better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where you're located, I think the glare is a lot less. So
Mm-hmm.
that's working out a whole lot better. So, as
Mm-hmm.
I said, welcome to Julia Pop. Today we are going to talk about how pop culture is affected by the Olympics, and the Olympics is affected by pop culture. So, with me, I
Cool.
have a guest, and that's Evan. So, welcome
Hey.
to Evan. Apparently, he is Kansas City. He's rooting for Kansas City.
Yeah.
So now, what you might
I don't
notice
even
with
really know what
me,
that means, but
uh, it's I think it's a Chiefs reference
versus
without
everybody,
being
it's
yeah.
so
I
bold.
think it's a Chiefs reference.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
I
it
feel
is.
pretentious wearing
Although,
it.
we didn't do all this year. But again, the best part about this, you really don't need to know about sports to watch this. We're going to have fun. We're going to talk about the pop culture portion of it. So that is definitely something that we're going to cover, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. So as you can see, I've got a little bit of Americana that I've got Evan wearing, and then I have a few different things that I am wearing because I wanted to make sure everybody was reminded that there were lots of countries, and sometimes we wouldn't just root for our own country, we would root for other countries
Oh,
too. So
totally.
I have my British, well, you can't see it, hang on, this side, my British flag from my Money in the Bank jacket, and I also have a lovely Germany shirt that says Deutschland there. And so this was actually, if I'm not mistaken, purchased in Germany by Linda. Thank you. My mother in law
Hmm.
bought it for my husband. And
Oh.
so he allowed me graciously to borrow this. I know that the kids used it as a sleep shirt for quite some time. So,
Mm.
but yeah. So, and I have some other outfit stuff that I'll try to share at some point as well. I have American socks and British shoes. So yeah, we'll talk about those a little
It's
bit
awesome.
as well.
How she puts this together, it's crazy.
I try to do something, and I discovered that I really did not have a whole lot of Olympic stuff.
Yeah.
Last week I showed you Sam, and it
That's the
seems like
best one.
yeah, and
I had
you
this.
had this
I
right,
had
and
this same
so of
thing.
course it's really great because he's got his little saying here, encouraging Olympians, and so it
Does
was
it have
very
a year and
popular.
everything
So
for him?
1984.
Okay,
So
because I have
and
the 1988 one, the
and
one
the,
from LA.
and well, but that wouldn't be from L.A. That would have been from Nagano, Japan.
So this is 84?
This is 84.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's what I had
yeah.
that year.
Yeah. So
It's
because
really hard to see
basically
between the lines with these.
really is okay. Well, there's just so much peace in your eyes that you've got to do that. So, but no, this was the mascot from 1984. I just took a little kind of side route just before starting today's cast about mascots, and a lot of them are really cute. They didn't really start until about 1968. There was an unofficial mascot that was just like a little bulb on a ski. But in 1972, they got it together, and they had a dachshund. And the
Like a
dachshund,
light bulb?
no, a little ball,
Oh,
like a little bulb of a ball, and
like a
and they
blob.
put a face on it, and then put it on a ski. Yeah, I don't. I think it might have had a name, but and of course some of the names are odd, and some of the names are meaningful. Of course, Sam the Eagle, Uncle Sam,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
something that we do. So of course we've got this little guy, and I found him, of course, at a thrift shop.
There's nothing
And
more America than that right
oh yeah, right, with his little top hat and his red, white, and blue, and he's an
now.
eagle. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but other Olympics had other ones. So like I said, 1972 was the first official mascot, and that was Valdi the Dachshund. Where do you think the Olympics was held at that point?
Oh God.
Munich. It was Munich, Germany.
I was gonna say Germany,
So
but
it's
then I
very
thought
German.
Dutch.
Yeah,
What's
and so and in
Dachshund?
'76, I think Innsbruck,
I'm tired.
and it's oh yeah, in '76, Innsbruck, Austria had the cutest little snowman, and he was actually called Snowman, but that word is Schneerman is how you
Schneerman.
Schneerman, and he
Schneerman.
was very cute. Yes, for sure.
Schneerman.
Yes, and of course, the Moscow Olympics, which was we'll get into a little bit of some politics would get in the way of these sometimes, and it is uh, it is a bit of uh, kind of a scary world that we live in, and so the Olympics was an attempt to get people to have healthy competitions and to experience not only you could still be proud of your country, but then also you could be together as an entire Earth.
Yeah, I
And
think it
so,
really
yeah.
it was like humanized people for people that didn't see other countries and
Yeah, absolutely. And you
it
would
put like
realize,
faces to
oh
all the
yeah, and
other
it's very triumph of the human spirit, right?
hmm
There's more stories than just the stories of the people that are playing for your country, and so those are some of the most amazing things that I love to watch. Yeah, and Jeremy says Germany, yes. So that was definitely Schneermann. Was
I
Innsbruck,
don't want to
Austria?
say that again
No,
ever.
you're butchering it. So, but the Moscow Olympics actually had one of the cutest ones. He was a little bear, a little Russian bear named
Can't beat little bears.
Misha. So
Mm.
yes, and so of course we could definitely go on about that. We have Vulko, the or Vuko, which means little wolf. In the language of Sarajevo. So I don't know if that was
Wow.
Slavic or what that was. And then one of my personal favorites is the one from Barcelona. His name is Kobe, but he was very avant garde because avant garde art, Picasso, and so he just kind of his little nose went this way and you'd see an eye over here. He was very Picasso coded.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
He
I
would
always
sound like
I
a
always found that was really cute. And then of course,
icon.
what does Atlanta do? They came up with something completely ridiculous and called it Izzy. They called it What's It. It was basically the Olympic rings. Like one of them was like around his eye, and the other one, and all that. So yes, Crystal, you have me understood completely. She said, "I'm sure you'll do a whole mascot episode." I will. I will. Yes, I am a big fan of mascots of all kinds, not only the stuffy kind, but also the fully fully functional, run around doing silly things on it at sporting and other events. So yes, I will be having a separate show about that. And then of course there were other ones. I think London had a weird blob kind of thing
Mm.
as well, and things started getting weird for a while. But now here lately they have returned to doing more of the animals that are kind of endemic to wherever it's being held, so that you get that feeling
Right. It
of
should like
what that country feels
represent
like.
the
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So Linda, welcome. She says, I love to watch the Olympics. Olympics, common things and weird things. Absolutely. So with my little cheat sheet, I did name it Olympic Fanfare. I did name this Salute to the Olympians because that was the name of a song that a bunch of marching bands did, including the ones that I taught. And we had a song called Salute to the Olympians, and I think that was part of the music. Of course, John Williams, the song that we were singing earlier. John Williams, the same composer of Jaws, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, same guy did that. So of course,
Hmm.
quite a few people, I hope, know who that is. So because he is extremely famous, multi Grammy and
Oh yeah.
Oscar-winning person.
Oh yeah.
So like I said, the Olympics was meant to be about world unity, but also national pride. So you would have, whoever you were standing up and cheering for, but you would cheer for everybody because everybody loves, the winning story, the difficult story, the climb to the top, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. Thanks, ABC Wide World of Sports. And so it was a triumph of the human spirit. And then, of course, it was the whole idea of universal progress, that we're progressing as not just a nation, as an earth, as worldwide. So
that's the hope of it all. Right.
exactly. So the Olympics has its origins in ancient times. The Olympics used to be every 4 years. So that is the word Olympic means that has come to mean that means every 4 years.
Wow, I did
Um,
not know that.
over time, yes. And so it started way back in
I
Greece.
shouldn't have sounded so
It's,
surprised.
it started way back in Greece in 776 BC and continued every 4 years. And there's a lot of history about it that you can read up to 393 AD in Greece. Ingrid's here. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hello.
And we have that's the reason they come under the country flags and end all entering as one. So yes, on the opening ceremonies they come out under their own flag, and on the closing ceremonies all of the athletes just come in together.
Right.
They're not split up by country. They mix it all up, and
Yeah.
that's the point.
Yeah.
So yeah, so an Olympiad is called 4 years, and they took 4 years because they wanted time to train. This was also a time when it wasn't very easy to travel. So, of course, you might take your time training and then take a very long trip to be able to compete. And then Crystal says, "This is Sparta." They did a very different kind of battle. Yes, they did. But we're in
Yeah,
the
I think
same.
of that too
But
when I
we're in
think
the
of the
same
Olympics.
neighborhood. And how fit were those boys,
I also
right?
think
Like they were very fit.
yeah, yeah.
So,
I think they underused Chariots of Fire in the Olympics though.
oh well, and the thing is, it
Dun,
was,
dun,
but it
dun,
was,
dun.
but it
Like
was
every
about the
runner
Olympics.
should just
Well,
be
and it
doing
was
that.
permissions though too, and that
Yeah.
was about because there are plenty of movies about the Olympics that cover,
Yeah.
making it there.
They could have made that happen at this point. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there was
Dum,
like
dum,
some
dum,
kind of
dum, dum.
interspersion with that, and I'm sure that there have got to be
It's
like
gotta be.
NBC and ABC used
Yeah.
it for
But like every finish line in track, it just needs to be like for the
to make them
runners. I mean, that would really pump them up.
I don't know, man. I was looking up on the fastest sprinters, and I feel like they would need speed medal
Yeah.
more than
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
than
You're
that.
right.
But
You're right.
but anyway, so Mom, hi, it's Norma June. She says love the Olympics. Yes, so
Hello.
I got it from somewhere, and we watched it quite a bit growing up. So every 4 years, and so with that. With the time to train, and the other thing is when you did the Olympics, there was an Olympic truce, and so that's why you were often given olive branches as awards because it was a symbol of peace. And so
Totally.
it was, you were doing athletic sport and you were wanting to bring peace amongst the nations. And then after that, of course, they would unfortunately go back to fighting.
Mhm.
But they actually brought, because you would win an olive wreath and you would also win a place in the history books. So there are still to this day Olympians that can be found in history books and can be mentioned. And so, of course, you would have your olive wreath that would go around your head, this historical fame that you would have. And in 2004 in Athens, they brought back the olive wreath. So any
Mm.
of the 2004 uh, winners would have not only got their gold medal, but they also got one of the olive laurel wreaths as
Wow.
well. Yeah.
So how long was the time? Like when was the last time they used it then?
So it was back in 393 A.D.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
That's
they
a long
really
time
weren't. Yeah. So
for it to come back.
and the
Usually
thing, and
trends like cycle
yeah,
faster than that.
and the other big part is that you got bragging rights. So you had bragging rights for whatever country, whatever place that you came from, and like I said, you would make history. Now
Mm.
they always happened in Olympia, and so you had to travel, like I had mentioned before, and then it spread Hellenistic culture. So the Greek culture is one of the greats, of course, the Roman culture, the British culture. Like there are all of these great cultures over time that had their rise and fall, and this was part of the rise of the Greek culture, was that they believed in health and sport and
Mm.
everything that went with that. So now it was also tied to mythology quite a bit because, of course, we've got our Greek gods. Like we're giving these awards somehow back to the gods, that people would try to tie it in with religion, when oftentimes it was just really about having fun and doing sports. And of course,
Yeah.
at that point, unfortunately, it was only free Greek men that could take part in this.
Mm.
But women were allowed to put up their horses. If a woman owned a horse, there were horse, were equestrian events,
Mm.
and they could do it that way. And that was really the only involvement, unfortunately.
Wow.
And so,
And
in
only
fact,
free men
and
too,
in,
right?
yes, and in fact, there was a very famous horse right around 470 BC, Pherenicos
Heard of them.
was that famous. Very much like, well, you've heard of Seabiscuit, right?
I haven't heard
Yeah,
of them.
no,
Yeah.
nothing.
No, I've
of
heard
that.
of Seabiscuit, yeah,
There you
but
go.
not the other
So
one. I've
he
already
was
forgot the other one's
he
name.
was the Seabiscuit. Pherenicos was the Seabiscuit
Pherenicos.
of his time because
Way
he was
funner to say.
he was an Olympic horse. And so, of course, for a while, the only thing that was ever done was called the stadion, which is where the word stadium comes from, and it was a run, 190 meters run. So essentially, what we know kind of as the 200-meter run, it was the original thing, and you just show up and run.
That's
and then they
interesting.
started
Exactly
adding
192. That's an odd number. For
190.
Or-
190
oh,
was what
190.
it was,
Okay,
about
sorry.
190 meters. So basically, it was the original stadion, which was that circle run that you would take.
Right.
So, and then of course they had the dialyos. Forgive me for butchering Greek. But that was the 400-meter run. So you'd run around the circle twice. And then,
Mm.
of course, the Dolichos, which was the long distance run, which then eventually worked its way into the 1600, which then worked its way into marathon. Of course, marathon, we always know all of the culture stories about that and how it's 26.2 miles because that's the distance from one town to the other.
I did
There's
not know
all
that.
kinds of lore around that. And so, of course, eventually a marathon did get added. They also had something called the pentathlon at the time, and there were 5 sports, but it was different than the one that we know now. So the OG, original pentathlon was the run, the javelin, the discus, the long jump, and wrestling. Yeah, they got to. I mean, it was Greco-Roman, right? Because this was in Greece,
And
right?
the whole reason this show
Yeah.
was put together
I
right now.
mean, no, I don't know about that.
Yeah,
I do
but
love the Olympics a lot. So,
yeah,
but that was the original 5.
that's
And
amazing.
then from there, they added some other things that we know to this very day, like boxing. When I bring up the horses, there
Like
were
when did
equestrian events, so jumping, chariot races
ah,
were a thing. And that's where your horses came in handy, right? And of course, wrestling. And then they had something else called pancration, which is basically when I read up on it, it's MMA. So lots of fisticuffs, lots of fighting.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So and then here's one of my favorites that I found out in studying for this: heralds and trumpeters could train, win, and also win Olympic glory.
As
And
a
so,
herald or a
as a
trumpeter.
herald or a trumpeter. So
Like
if you were
I got a
loud and you were
gold as
good,
a trumpeter.
yeah, yeah.
Gold,
In fact,
amazing.
there was
Yep.
one that made the history books that I was able to found. Herodotus. He was, hang on, Herodotus of Megara was a 10-time trumpet playing Olympian. See, these are the sentences you can't just get anywhere else, right?
That
I
is a
know.
great sentence.
I think so too. I thought
Time
10-time
trumpeting Olympian.
Olympic trumpeter.
Olympic trumpeter.
Yeah. So after 393
Awesome.
AD, it kind of went away, but there was a resurgence in Athens as we were going past the Industrial Revolution and things were modernizing. They wanted to do something to recognize sports, and so in Athens, they started it back up again in Athens, and a French fellow by the name of Coubertin led it. And so, interestingly, Stephen told me that Coubertin, ended up getting a baron, becoming a baron for it because of the success of bringing back the Olympics. And so that was in 1896. They brought it back in Athens.
So he
Now the
raised
wins.
up in his
Now
status.
here is the interesting thing about this: the winners did not get gold; they got silver because that was what they had available. So the winner got silver and an olive leaf.
Mm-hmm.
So not like a laurel, but like a the leaf itself. And then second, if you came in second, you would get bronze, and then you would get a laurel. So there was a gap between 393 and 1896.
Was there no
Then they
third?
not at the time.
Wow.
Not at the time.
Okay.
So yeah. So you won if you won silver, that was first, and an olive leaf. Second was
So
bronze.
first,
and a
third was like just a participatory
yeah. So
thing.
so
Awesome.
so over time, the medals changed a bit, and of course, the
Inflation.
representation of each of the medals were the ages of man. So the Bronze Age, which was they often mentioned that's the heroes. Silver was very representative of youth, and gold meant among the gods. And so gold, silver, and bronze. And then, of course, that was also based somewhat on the rarity of the metals because gold was more rare than silver, silver was more rare than bronze. And so, with that,
Right. I figured
the rarer
that
that
was, part of it,
was, the more that you would do that. So, the interesting thing about gold, there might have, I think there was one year where the gold medals were gold, but gold is a very malleable substance. A lot of people don't know that. So, when you get a gold medal for, I don't know, the last 50 plus years, it's 92.5% silver
yeah. Right.
and then plated in gold.
Well, because like pirates, they would like bite it to make sure it's gold.
And that's something else we'll talk about a little bit too. Yeah, because it should bend. If it's
It should
gold,
bend,
it
yeah.
should bend when you go to bite it. And
First
so,
thing you learn in pirating school.
is that okay? I'm pretty sure I thought the first thing you learned in pirate school was not to talk about you went to pirate school, but we'll be all right.
Obviously,
So,
only
but yes,
one of us
here-
has
okay,
been to
so
pirate school.
I did take my notes successfully. So, from 1904 to 1912, they were made of solid gold, and then after 1912 was when they started doing the
Mm.
silver with the gold plating over the top to make them a lot sturdier. Now, of course, many different designs, and whenever a host city gets to host it, they get to pick the design. And some people have loved designs, some people have hated the designs. It's very interesting. So in 1900, when they started giving out gold, silver, bronze, in 1900 they were rectangular. instead of being round like what we
Mm.
know to this very day.
Mm.
And then, of course, in 1904 was when they finally achieved the uniformity of gold, silver, bronze, what we know. So Stormy says, oh, hi Stormy, how are you doing? Kenzie, her daughter, said, "Hey, Mama was at my her was at my party. Yes, I was at your party. How are you, Kenzie? I'm so glad that you're watching. We're talking
Hello.
about the Olympics and having some fun. So, and
Mm-hmm.
I had a ball at your birthday. I hope you did too. So,
Happy birthday.
right? It's belated, but yeah, we're good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and so also on these on the medals was the goddess Nike. Now, this is of course before branding and everything. Of course, we know Nike as a shoe brand, but Nike is a goddess,
Mm-hmm.
and so she was a goddess of um, of success, of greatness, of all of those things. And so putting Nike, the goddess, on your medal made you feel like you were a Greek god.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, the host city mints the medals, so they have some control over that. What I've always been entertained by is the weirdest medals were usually done by the Winter Olympic committees. So there were a couple of seasons where the it was glass in the center, and then just had the medal around the side, where you
Mm.
could, it's like, is this, oh, it is a gold, I can see this little edge of gold over here. So and then other places would do different things. So
So it
um,
really is. I didn't know they were that different. Year,
they are from
each
year to
time.
year. They change
Mm.
almost each and every time.
That's cool.
And so other places will make it out of, there was something called sparagmite, which was a very kind of almost granite looking thing, and sometimes they were lacquered. So that I know that in China was where they did lacquered metals. And so with this, occasionally if you had varnish, you would have varnish problems, but the Olympic Committee, if you ever had a problem or broke your metal broke in any way, you could always turn it in to have it fixed. So
Mm.
because they wanted you to keep your
Sure,
honor.
of course.
So one of the most interesting ones that I found was in 2006, Turin, Italy, had medals, but they had a giant hole in the middle. Like it was like they were like a little donut ring, and then they would put the ribbon, just like
Oh,
tie the ribbon
oh,
around.
okay.
And so it looked cool, but it was weird
Mm-hmm.
for sure. But 24 of, or oh, in 2024,
Sounds like they're scrimping on like gold
well,
on
but
that.
the thing is they try to create them, but they don't always know how well they're going to fare over the
Right,
years.
right, right.
And so in 24, the bronze in particular was kind of flaking off. So a lot of people who won their medals in 2024 had to get those turned back in. In 26, which you probably just heard about this season, there were breaks. There was a breaking problem with the ribbon to the medal. And so people would jump up and down excited and pop. But they are
Somebody
getting it.
got fired.
Well, no, they did get it fixed, and so these things happen. Of course, what you mentioned before, one of the biggest photo ops that people are doing, it's like, okay, bite your medal, and some of these kids, like, they're like, oh, okay.
They don't get it.
No, but that was the thing, is
Right.
like, you used to bite,
Uh-huh.
to make sure that it was a legitimate coin, and that depending on the metal, it would either bend or not bend. So you're always checking to make
But at
sure.
this point, it's becoming just an odd
Yeah,
request for
it's
a whole
just
generation.
yeah,
Like,
it's just bite the metal.
okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what they do. And then of course at the end, you had the podium. The podium was actually not added until 1932, so they would just kind of stand there, and then they also started raising the flag of that country, and then they would also have the national anthem of that company now, of that country. And so now at the time of the Soviets breakup, it was at a very difficult time when a lot of them were training. We still wanted them to be part of the Olympics, so they had the unified team. And it was just kind of there at the beginning of the breakup process. And so there were a few years in the 90s where they went from being the unified team to being each of their countries that they came from. So
Oh, okay.
Belarus or Latvia or Russia itself or any of those would then split out. But it was complicated, and so they didn't have the Soviet Union anthem any longer. So they use a lot of times. Apparently, the Olympic Committee has their own anthem, and they would play the Olympic Committee one. Yeah. So
Do we know
and
what it is?
yeah, it's around somewhere. I could probably make a little mini playlist of a few of those interesting songs
But it
that
wouldn't be
had to do with
something
the
that most
Olympics.
people like remember.
No, it's not necessarily a hummable thing,
Mm.
So, but there were enough people that enough former Soviets that won that those flags did go up, and
I'm
so
gonna cover
and
it.
they used the rings flag. Now, the rings flag, it was first flown in 1920. So can you imagine going to an Olympics and not seeing the 5 Olympic rings? The green, black, blue, red, yellow. And the thing is a lot of people think that each of those colors stand specifically for one of the continents, but it is not the case. Basically, those 5 colors were picked because of it. Each of those colors was in every nation's flag. One of
Oh,
those colors was in every
wow.
nation's
Okay,
flag.
I did not know that.
So let's say Argentina,
That's
they
gonna
have
be a
that
whole
bright
thing. I
yellow.
did not
They
know
have
that.
that bright yellow sun.
Yep.
Of course, in America we have red and blue, and as well as in France, as well as in the UK. And so different countries would have, say, green in their flag, or and so they tried to make sure that in picking those five specific colors, it covered every flag, at least one color from every flag in the world.
So it could have been more than five, or more than they just came up with like a
Maybe, but
common.
yeah, that was just kind
Hmm.
of the and so yeah, and the other thing is that also the five idea is still those the continents,
Oh, okay.
but it's not specific one color is this. A lot of people thought that green was Australia and blue was Europe and red was the Americas, but that's not necessarily the case.
Hmm.
So it was just representing all the colors in the flags, and they just happened to do it that way. So,
That's
and
cool.
that represents the five continents that Australia, which now they call Oceania. I never say that right. Oceania.
I did
However, I don't
not
know how to
hear
say it.
about that
I didn't.
change.
I didn't get educated in Oceania until much later after I was out of school. So
How
I don't
long has
know.
that been?
Years now. It's been a little while. Yeah.
Oh,
So Oceania
they call the
as like
continent that, but is
as a continent.
Australia still the
Yes,
country then?
it is the
Oh,
well, it's the main, but
right.
it's
And New
all of those
Zealand
extra
and
islands
right.
and New Zealand and all of that.
I want
And
to
so,
live in Oceania.
oh my gosh, I want to visit. I definitely do. So, so Oceania, Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Americas. That includes North and South together. They
Mm.
combine the Americas as being that fifth one.
Right. I was
Yep.
wondering why it wasn't seven or.
Yeah, so it does so the five does represent five continents, not six, not seven, but
Mm.
five. And we haven't had anybody from Antarctica. Maybe that's what the white
Right.
background stands for. Let's just go with that. Yeah, we're just going to go with that one. So, and of course,
They
uh,
are like lacking representation
so
so hard
so
right now.
we had Summer Olympics for a very long time, and then we went into the Winter Olympics. Those didn't start until 1924 in Chamonix, France. And the thing was is that the Olympic Committee was always very busy, and they came up with an idea in the 90s to split them apart. So now we get to watch Olympics every 2 years, but in 24 it was summer, in 26 it was winter, in 2 years from now it'll be summer again. So it's still an Olympiad every 4 years,
Hmm.
summer to summer, winter to winter. But in 92, so in 92 there was a winter Olympics, and in 94 there was a winter
Oh,
Olympics. And so from there,
as they were setting the
and it
clock or whatever.
helps the Olympic Committee be able to keep up with
Oh yeah,
stuff and keep busier stuff and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of watch.
it
Uh,
makes sense. The 2 year
yeah,
break
and
between each.
it's win-win for everybody involved, because then the Olympic committees have time to get things together for their different countries, get time to focus on everything. So there are other Olympics that go hand in hand that are under the same Olympic umbrella, and that would be the Special Olympics.
Hmm.
So which is a really noble cause. We also have the Paralympics, and so we also
I
have the
actually
Youth
volunteered
Olympic
at the
Games.
Special
Did you
Olympics once.
see? It was fun.
It was like one of the best days ever.
See, I'm telling you, it's just amazing. Again, it's triumph of the human spirit.
I
People
was a
who
kid
want
at
to strive.
my dad worked for a hospital that had athletes there, so I got to meet the athletes. There was a
That's awesome.
guy lifting weights.
I love
We
it. And that's
bowled.
the thing is like that's what it's all about, is getting people to have courage and come together and do great things. So of course then we also had the Youth Olympic Games, so people that were too young to be in the Olympics at first, they would have that, and that was also under the Olympic umbrella. And then if you've ever heard of the Pan American Games, the Pacific Games, the Asian Games, the European Championships, African Championships, each and every one of those are also under the Olympics
I did not know
umbrella.
that.
So, but that is how they get more athletes ready to be Olympic level, because they're working their way up to the World Championships, and then they work their way
Okay.
into. And so the Continental Championships is what those are called. So like I said, the Pan American Games. So certain World Championships are run by different, committees. Like
Do they air
the state-
those on TV and
they
everything?
do quite a bit. Usually it's on some of the smaller channels. It's
Yeah.
on, NBC Sports, NBC Universal Sports. Those,
'Cause I bet you that could
places
be
like
like
that.
huge each
Oh, it
time.
is, and a lot of people do watch it. But usually that's kind of where people who are fans of sport kind of split out a little bit into
Mhm.
those.
Mhm.
So we've mentioned a few host cities before, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a rundown. Europe has hosted 33 Olympic Games. North America has hosted 14. We then have Asia with 8. We have Australia with 3. South America, when they hosted Rio back in the 2010s, was 1, just the 1. And Africa has not hosted anything yet. So
Oh,
maybe it's time for something to happen there. And
totally.
and the thing is when you become a host city, there's so much infrastructure and so much building that happens. And Sarajevo, sadly, is kind of what happens sometimes. Depending on the size of a city, things will rust and
Hmm.
die out. And of course, if you have a massive genocidal war, then that
Yeah,
runs us into problems too.
really
And
messes
so
with the stadiums.
it does, and that's the thing is sometimes certain towns are able
It's a war, though. Yeah.
certain towns are able to reuse the stadiums,
Mm.
but certain ones are not able to
And
do
they
so.
just sort of sit there. I've heard,
Yeah,
right? Like sort of like
yeah, and so
relics
it
of
can
money
be
that they made at some point.
yeah, and it's tricky. It's like they will go through such a process, pick me, but they've got to have the infrastructure to back it up. And then usually whatever town that's in, they're trying to come up with a way to reuse it in the future. Well,
Mm.
Los Angeles, that's easy. People go have football games there and have track and field there and
I
all
saw
that stuff.
Coldplay at
See,
the
it's
Los
still it's
Angeles
and that's the thing is
Coliseum or whatever. Yeah.
exactly, and it's still happening, and so it comes down to these what these host cities are able to bring, and it's sometimes it's scandalous, like there's pay going kind of under the table kind of stuff, and so
Mm.
people can get in trouble for that. So you have to be very careful about it. Now there are a set of countries that have been at all of the Summer Olympics, and those are Australia, France, Greece, Switzerland, and the UK. Because, of course, there were often times when people would boycott because of any kind of political strife that was going on. So, like the
Mm.
US boycotted Moscow in 1980,
Mm.
and then the USSR boycotted LA in
Mm.
84.
Hmm.
And so it
They
created
got
a
us.
very different, it
We
created a
got
very different
them.
thing.
They got us.
And that's
Yeah.
that's the other part of it is like you think about all of the Olympians that were trying so hard just to get told, yeah, we're not going, and that's heartbreak. And certain people only have a certain window of time where they can be considered viable as an athlete in a specific sport.
Sure.
So there's a lot of
I've
heartbreak
thought
that
about
went
that a
with all
lot.
of
There's
those.
like 8 years in between,
Yep.
or 4 years, sorry, in between each.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
and
that's
and depending on your timing in the sport that you're playing, it's very hard
you
to
get
last
older.
in a sport more than a couple of Olympics, to be
Hmm.
quite honest. So speaking of the sports themselves, we've got our classic sports. Now, they divide it up. They have 35 sports. So, for example, one of the sports is wrestling. They have 30 disciplines. So, for example, in wrestling, one of the wrestling disciplines is Greco Roman, the other is freestyle. And a total of 408 events right now. That changes a lot because they vote things in, they vote things out. And so, oftentimes, the example on the events is weight class for wrestling or
Mm.
gender class for wrestling.
Hmm.
And so with that, that's how it all kind of splits out. So one of the some of the old originals would be athletics, cycling, fencing, gymnastics, shooting, swim team, tennis, weightlifting, and wrestling. And so those are kind of the old ones. And of course, track and field, which is also known as athletics
Okay.
just in general. And so we have the pentathlon, the decathlon, and then of course the marathon oftentimes was the end. Like that was usually the last thing that they would do before the closing ceremonies.
Mm.
And they would have people kind of finish running into the stadium. That was always a big deal for a while. Now, the marathon almost didn't make it past 1904 because in 1904, one of the most ridiculous and best stories to tell about the Olympics happened. So in 1904, we're in St. Louis. A bunch of people showed up to run 26 miles, 0.2 miles, in trousers and dandy suits. Yeah, and they were on an open dirt road, so they did not close the road down. So cars and trolleys and things were coming and going, and it was dirt, so like dirt is kind of coming up. Exceptionally hot because summer in the Midwest, you all know. And then very little water was provided, and the water was bad, brackish, would make people throw up.
Oh my God.
The winner, who actually had his win status removed later, rode in the car for 11 miles of it. Yeah, yeah, and we're not even done yet. The fellow that yeah, so there was another fellow who was a Cuban and he was a mailman. Showed up in a very dandy suit and outfit. Had not eaten in 2 days, and so he had an apple while he was running along. Got sick, and then decided to take a nap. But then still finished in fourth place. Yeah, yeah. So.
Oh my
So
God! If we could see video of
there
that,
should be a movie made.
it would have been like Monty.
There
It
should
would have
there
been
should
Monty
be a movie
Python
made about
all
this.
over the place.
Yes. And so Crystal says gymnastics is the one I always watch in the summer. Figure skating in the winter, same. It's just something. There's something that it has an appeal to me. And of course, I love fashion stuff, so there's lots of fashion, and I agree. Those are probably my two big favorites as well. So then, of the 32 people in the 1904 marathon, only 14 finished. Yeah,
How many
because
people
and
entered them?
the 32,
Yeah.
32 entered, only 14
This
finished.
was a small
So
growing
it was,
thing.
and like I said, this whole thing really, like, someone needs to make a movie about it. But somehow somebody managed to keep marathon on, and it's been, of course, a great success up
God,
until
somebody
then.
does need to make a movie about that.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
So some of the other summer ones that we've already talked about: gymnastics, the triathlon, rowing. Of course, some of our winter ones: figure skating, speed skating, ice dance, bobsled, luge, skeleton.
Bobsled.
Right, like flinging yourself down a very slick hill.
Mm.
Yeah. So and then
Luge scares
oh
me,
yes,
but
and
bobsled, cool.
Inger agrees with our favorites, me three. So she agrees that gymnastics and figure skating are the favorites. But yes, those are a lot of fun to watch as well. Of course, we have our ice hockey, which of course we've had a few gold medals to the U.S. Good job, peoples. And so Inger said the original runner that set the distance for a marathon died. Yes, that is the lore. Back when I was talking about it's the distance between two cities, he had a very important message. He ran the whole way, 26.2 miles. Gave the message, fell over dead.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a whole set of lore that goes with that. So yes,
Marathon
and then
could be a show.
now, oh yeah, I think so too. Now we have some odd ones, some little weird ones that maybe you didn't realize that we did. So croquet, your little croquet
No
that you play on the
way.
lawn. Yeah, 1900, and then they had another one called roquet. I don't
It's
know
not
what they
still
changed.
going
I don't
on,
know if
though.
it was like no, not anymore.
No.
But I don't know if roquet.
Say
I don't know if roquet is just.
2026.
I don't know if roquet is just like the X Games of croquet. I don't know.
Roquet?
But that
Sure.
happened in 1904, and then after that, it kind of died out.
What is
Motor
roquet?
racing, actual car driving
Of course.
was part in 1900.
Of course.
Boat racing. So now we can tell another really hilarious sentence. Motorboating was an Olympic sport. I'm going to let you do with that whatever you need to do with that.
Sweet.
And moving on. And so tug of war was a thing from 1900 to 1920. You could get a tug of war team together and do a whole thing.
And win the gold in
yes,
tug
you
of
could
war.
win gold in tug of war. Yes, you could.
Awesome.
And the steeplechase. Now, I know people know the horse steeplechase, but there's also human steeplechase, part of the track and field. And there's like certain tracks have like it's a trough. It's like a trough that they have water in, and you have to jump over a high. You could actually jump onto the beam and jump
Right.
off, land in the water, and where you landed in the water usually was strategically for you to be able to win. And so steeplechase still goes to this very day. It's crazy looking to watch.
It still happens?
Yes, it still happens. That one still happens to this very day. So you can
Wow.
actually look up steeplechase videos and
Okay.
see that. And of course, one of
Like
everybody's
human
big.
steeplechasing.
Yes, yes, yes.
That
And-
sounds like the show Wipeout.
oh, it has elements. Do you wonder where Wipeout came from?
Awesome.
So, and then another one that's kind of ridiculous that we don't always understand that we love: curling. Yeah, it started in 1924. It's got their little brooms. They're making it land in the right spot, right, and everything. And so that one, I watch it just in agog. Like I'm like, what am I
Just
watching?
Like,
Yeah,
they're-
and they do
they're
this. They
doing
do the
something with
brush to make
the
it
brush,
move the way it's supposed
and
to
it's
move,
all
right?
like it's all
Right,
handlebar
and then
mustache
just that
brushes.
right, yes, and then that skitty way that they just kind of come at it. I love it. I think it's.
I've
amazing.
always looked. I just looked at that the first time. I'm like, they're just doing that for show. That has nothing
No,
to do
no,
with
there's
any-
something
No,
to that, and I don't even know
something.
the half of it. And of course, biathlon, nothing like let's ski and shoot. But that's been happening. It started in 1924, didn't really take off until 1960. They brought it back, and it goes all the way up till now. Artistic swimming, synchronized swimming, didn't really start until 1984 and came there. Table tennis, ping pong, only had its time in 1988 in Nagano, Japan, and then it went away. In karate, they did in 2020 they did katas and kumite, so you could actually win a gold in karate in
Okay.
2000.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then sorry, not 2000, 2020.
They have fencing. They need karate.
Oh yeah, and Crystal says curling is weird. I don't know the rules. I just get lost. I know. I'm just here to just like watch whatever the heck they're doing.
I wait for
yeah.
the cheers or the booze. That's
Yeah,
it.
and
Like,
then I'm like, okay, I'll cheer too. Okay, yes, I've got it. And then skateboarding, surfing, and climbing all came along in 2020 and are still
Yeah.
here to this day. Now, some of them are just put in as experimental sports, and then if it really takes off and gets popular, they will add it as an official sport. So there are some
I did
that are
not know
just- yeah.
climbing was in there.
So yeah, and I think that it was a test sport. I don't know if it has made it into the regular rotation. But another one of those that we need to take a second to talk about was breaking. in 2024.
Breakdancing.
Breakdancing. Yeah, in
Yes.
2024. Of course, in Paris. And we all know about that lady from Australia, right?
Mm.
Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of, this is how you can make it to the Olympics and not really know what you're doing. So, with my suggestion, I mean, I'm not going to trash on her. We're going to let it go because enough has been
She
said.
knows what she was doing.
Enough has been said, I'm sure, and we just need to recognize that it happened and move on. But what I will recommend to you, go watch Red Bull Dance Your Style. It happens every year, and it's a big deal. Dancers from all over the world descend on it. It is some of the best dancing, break dancing, popping, locking,
Mm.
all of that.
Mm.
Just go to watch Red Bull. And if they bring back breaking again, they need the people in charge of Red Bull to just come in and
Sure.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that would solve everything. So we've just mentioned Reagan as being, one of the stars of the Olympics for good or ill. So I'm going to rattle out, and I know that we're at we got about 20 minutes to go. I'm going ahead and taking everything to the top of the hour because we do have some things to talk about. Those of you that are chit chatting with me, please continue to do so, so we can keep the conversation rolling. So of course we have stars. One of the first stars of the Olympics would be Sonia Henne. She was a figure skater. She came in eighth back when she was 11, and then after that she came in gold medal 3 times in a row. So much so that she became a movie star. She was so popular and
Wow.
everybody loved her that
Mm.
she then became a
What
very well
what year
known
was this
Hollywood
again?
star. So that was in the 1920s. And
Okay.
so she was 20s into 30s and then became a movie star from that.
Mm.
Another one from the old days is Jesse Owens. Of course, we remember the story about him from 1936 in Berlin. Mr. That guy with the tiny little mustache. Yeah, that guy was thinking that his people were going to win, and in reality, Jesse Owens was the best,
Mm-hmm.
fastest, and he was the fastest man in the world. Whenever you win the 100-meter dash, or they count the 100 and the 200, um, and when you win that and you set a world record, you're the fastest man in the world. So Jesse
Mm.
Owens was one of the first to be noted as the fastest man in the world. And of course, it was the 100-meter that he won.
Mm.
Now, we love our gymnastics. One of the ones that made it popular was a lady from the Soviet Union called Larissa Latynina. She won. She went across 3 Olympics, which is rare in whenever you're doing gymnastics, although Simone Biles did it most recently. And she got 9 gold medals, 14 medals total into 3 Olympics. So, and
Mm.
she was kind of in the 60s and really got more girls doing gymnastics, and then the explosion that we know from the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s to today. And so she
She's
was
looking
very
like Mr.
responsible.
T with all
She was
those medals.
she was very responsible for that. Yes, lots of gold. And so then, of course, in the 70s, we had Peggy Fleming and 60s and 70s for Peggy and Dorothy Hamill. So, of course, when I was a kid, I wanted that Dorothy Hamill bob haircut because she was always so cool, and I was watching her. Of course, we had Mark Spitz, which I did want to tell a little push broom
Mm.
mustache story in 1972. He won a total of 9 gold medals. And in 72, he got 7 world records and 7 gold medals. Yes, Inger brings up another awesome gymnastics person, Olga Korbut. She was very well known in 72. I think she also went in 76 and might have been in 1980. I have to kind of look. She was one of the rare three-time ones as well.
God, your brain, Julie.
I know it's a lot, but anyway,
No,
Mark
like
Spitz had a
just
push. Hang on, we
stats.
got the push broom story.
Yeah.
Mark Spitz had a push broom mustache, very 70s, very Burt Reynolds, right? So he was talking to somebody from the Russian delegation, and they're like, "Doesn't that like slow you down?" And he says, "No, it actually helps me breathe better." And so, the next time he saw the Russian delegation, they had all grown push broom mustaches. Yeah, and he was going to shave the mustache for the swimming, but it didn't. He was able to set all these world records
That
with
would
it
feel
on.
like
Yeah.
better than gold right there to see everybody wearing your mustache.
Oh, yeah,
actually.
right. And then Crystal mentions, how weird is it that Snoop is like an Olympics promoter? I guess he'd be. Yeah, I mean, he's such a positive dude. Like, he's a mellow dude, but he's a positive dude. And so
Yeah.
I love that he's part of that. And then Inger said, Dorothy Hamill is one of the first ice skaters to have a move named for them. Yeah, so there's a lot of moves named for gymnastics people. There are a lot of moves named for figure skating people. So, yeah, so a lot of popular ones as
Like
far
the
as that.
Dorothy Hamill is
Yeah,
it?
I think it was Hamill spin. I think she had a spin that she did.
Hamill spin.
I think.
That's
I don't know.
awesome.
Inger might know it better than I did. There was only so much studying I could do
That's a
in that.
legacy.
And of course, after Olga, or right around the time of Olga, came Nadia Comaneci. She was one of my favorites. She was from Romania, and of course, these Eastern Bloc countries. The interesting thing about that is that these athletes just lived to do their athletics, and a lot of people who were amateur athletes are like, "Hey, this isn't fair." technically they weren't being paid to do it, but they had all of their means covered. Like they
Right.
would live
I
in a
remember hearing
village and
about
all that.
that.
There
Yeah.
it is. There it is. Um, it's called the Hamel Camel. So it was a camel spin, but Dorothy did it in a very different kind of way, and so
Mm.
that was why it was called the Hamel Camel Spin. Yeah, and so
Thank you.
I know. See, Inger's always helpful with all that great information as well. And like I said, Eastern Bloc countries, the Soviet Union, they had dedicated, and they were very dedicated to making sure that these people were provided for, and because they wanted them to win gold. And so it made it a little bit of an uphill battle. So in the 90s, they finally opened it up because the originator of the 1896 Coubertin wanted it to stay amateurs only. So if you were a professional basketball player, a professional skater, whatever it was, you couldn't be in the Olympics
Yeah.
until the 90s. And then that all changed with the Dream Team. So, of course, in
Hmm.
basketball, we were finally able to put our pro guys up, and we've pretty much been winning gold ever since. And so, which is interesting because there are a lot of other countries, Latvia, Lithuania have very good basketball players, have a very good team, but
Our pros just like, yeah.
yeah, and so with them being allowed to do that, that was a pretty big deal. And so now, depending on the sport, pros can get in. Shaun White, the snowboarder. So of course, all of those different kind of things. So now it's a lot more opened up.
It's just we have so much competition when it comes to basketball players
Yeah.
going into it and
Oh,
stuff versus
absolutely. Yeah.
maybe other countries that wouldn't have as many that are even interested in that
Hmm.
sport.
Exactly. And so you don't always know what countries are going to end up having that be their strong suit, but that's what they do. And
Mm.
so for track, we always had Ben Johnson versus Carl Lewis. They would go back and forth and back and forth. Ben Johnson was from
I remember that.
UK,
Yeah.
Carl Lewis was American, and they would go back and forth as being the fastest man in the world. So each of them held that. Of course, other 80s gymnasts, Mary Lou Retton, Carrie Strug into the 90s. Of course, we had a lot of different dream teams. They were called the Magnificent Seven, and that was, let me see if I can name them all off, Miller, Dawes, Strug, Mocianu, Borden, Chow, and Phelps. And
Mm.
all seven of those girls were gold medal contenders for a lot of stuff, and they swept it, like in 92, 96. And then they reduced the number of people that were on a gymnastics team to five, and they were called the Fierce Five, the Final Five. And so over the years, and of course, Simone Biles has been part of that, and a whole bunch of others that probably are going to get mentioned as I work my way through this. Now, there are certain people that manage to make their way through as many as 6 Olympics. Can you imagine? That's like over 20 plus
They're all
years.
curlers, though.
No, actually, one of them is a female
Sorry.
kayak. She does kayak. And
Oh,
so her
okay.
name was Bridget Fisher. She won 8 golds in 6 games.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That
And
is
so,
awesome.
and Crystal mentions Shannon Miller. Yes, that is one of the Magnificent Seven. She was from Oklahoma, I think. And then, of course, one of the big ones that we always remember as far as the story is the Jamaican bobsled team.
Ah, yeah. They
Yeah,
had a movie, Cool Runnings.
Yeah, and so they actually did not really place above 16th, but again, it's that triumph of the human spirit. And then, of
Mhm.
course, there's a movie about Eddie the Eagle, who was legally blind, but did ski jumping. And he
Mhm.
was able to be guided, and he came in last place pretty much every time, but he worked like crazy, so much so that they did a movie about him.
Mhm.
So, yeah. So, and then, of course, like I mentioned before, our basketball dream team, we had Larry Bird, Karl Malone, Patrick Ewing, John Stockton. We had Michael Jordan, of course, Scottie Pippen, Charles Barkley, Magic Johnson. It was huge. Like the picture that I said only had like 5 of those
It's
guys.
ridiculous. It's a
How
ridiculously
it was an
good
embarrassment
team.
of riches.
Yeah.
Yes. And so
Ah.
obviously they won the gold. Now, of course, also right around that same time in 1988, we had Flojo, Florence Griffith Joyner, one of the flashiest, most fashionista people that ever ran. She was known and is still known as the fastest woman in the world. And of course, a lot of people, are controversial about her getting that, but she's been tested a multitude of
Mhm.
times,
Mhm.
and unfortunately passed in the 90s. But she won 3 gold and 2 silver just in 1988. Her sister-in-law Jackie Joyner Kersey was also great on the medal podium as well. And so lots to watch in track at
Mhm.
right around that time. And so then, of course, we mentioned figure skating at the time in '88. I was just watching a thing about Calgary, how we had the two Brians, Brian Orser and Brian Boitano. That was
Mm.
great watching. And
It
then, of
is
course,
fun. Yeah, I was watching that.
oh
That's
yeah, and
awesome.
at the same time, we also had Katarina Witt. Now, with figure skating and the fashion, there was a Katarina Witt rule because she had her tights went too far up the booty. So there were
Did they
people, yeah.
though? Did they?
So they started requiring that they kind of cover enough of the cheek, I guess. So
more, more,
yes, and
more
Inger
granny
Inger
panty.
mentioned Scott Hamilton. He was a gold medal winner in
Oh,
'84. Yes. So and then of course we did Debbie, and I forgot. I feel bad because I forgot her name, her last name. Debbie Thomas, there it is, was also fun to watch. She was an American going up against head to head with going head to head with Katarina Witt. And so that was, of course, a lot of drama as well happening in Calgary. Inger said, got to see him practice before he appeared in the Olympics. Wow. Scott
that
Hamilton,
is
right?
cool.
Amazing. And to this very day, like he does commentary for the Olympics and everything, and he's just wonderful. Just a wonderful human being from what I can tell over here. Of course, in the 90s, we had the scandal of Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding when it came to figure skating. Both great figure skaters, but Tanya Harding, soon to be ex husband, cracked
Yeah.
Nancy with the busted her knee. She was still able to
Went
perform.
Sopranos on her.
Oh my! And the crazy thing was they didn't even end up winning. Like,
Right.
yeah, because Tanya came in like I don't know 8th or ninth. Nancy came in second to Oksana Bayul, this little 16-year-old girl from
Yeah.
Belarus, from one of the former Eastern Bloc countries, and she just knocked it out of the park and ended up winning over that all of that drama. Then let's get into summer a little bit again. Crystal says Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding was the drama. I remember. Yeah, definitely some storytelling there, to
Mhm.
say the very least. Of course, in tennis, we've got the sisters, Venus and Serena. Venus was a 4-time gold winner, Serena a 3-time gold winner because they were doing they were doubles tennis and just kind of owned the competition. Now, currently the fastest man in the world is Usain Bolt. He's got 3 gold medals. And then, of course, um, we have our snowboarder Sean White had 3 gold for snowboarding,
Dude,
and then the
that guy's unreal.
winningest Olympian is Michael Phelps, the swimmer.
Yeah.
He's got 23 gold medals, 7 world records, pretty much the same 7 world records that Mark Spitz set back in the day. Michael is the new Mark Spitz, but way more. And then he also had 23 gold medals, 28 medals total, and 7 world records. Of course, no slouch herself, Katie Ledecky, another swim team. She has 9 gold medals. Now, one of the other ones that went across the record holder for the most games they were in was Isabel Wirth. She was a German equestrian. She got 8 gold medals. She went as across 7 games across 32 years. And one of them, I think she might have been East German, so she missed one of the boycotted games. But she made it into 7 games. And in over there in Russia, she is in a PC game. She's so popular over there as an equestrian sports person that she's in a PC game. Never heard of her before, but Isabel Wirth is her name. And of course,
It's a horse riding game.
it's equestrian. Yeah.
I'm sorry,
yeah.
equestrian game.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. As far as
Doesn't
I
sound
know.
fun.
As far as I know. So
Trot,
then, of course,
trot.
we did mention that we had controversies. Certain host cities had some corruption. We had boycotts in 1936, and because of the war was kind of coming up. We didn't have Olympics in 1940 and 1944 because of the war. 1956, there were some African countries that were against the Suez Canal being built, and so that was part of it. 1964 and 1976, in 1980, 84, and 88. And so certain different countries would disagree with what another country was doing. And then there were also medals started to be stripped when people were breaking the rules. That didn't really start until 1968, but over 160 medals have been stripped from doping scandals.
Mm.
Yeah, and so the biggest offenders were the big guns, Soviets and the U.S.
Of course.
Were oftentimes known for that, and so getting that out of there has been a very stringent activity. So we've got about 7 minutes left, so now it's the closing ceremony. So we talked about opening ceremonies, we talked about closing ceremonies. Some of my favorites, and I will definitely be posting some of the fashion. You know I love fashion. So in Lithuania, or the Lithuanian basketball team in particular, had Grateful Dead T-shirts that they came to the medal podium wearing,
I did
and
not see
they
it. I
had
barely watched
tracksuits,
any this
and
year.
they had tracksuits designed by Issey Miyake, which was a Japanese designer, and they had capes that would roll out the back. So it was a
Awesome.
tracksuit, but then it would roll out a cape that
Like
said Lithuania,
wins
right?
completely.
Now the unified team, people joked a lot about it because they came out wearing trench coats, like I guess the KGB had a fire sale after it was all over. I don't
Oh
know.
my God.
Yeah. And then Linford Christie is one of the track guys, and he had to wear a different brand like Puma or Reebok. He had to wear Reebok items because a lot of times the Olympic stuff would have logos on it for the sponsors. He had Puma contact lenses. So when he opened his eyes, you could see the little Puma. So he could still represent who he had signed a contract with
Mm.
and somehow got away with it.
Mm.
Of course, Michael Johnson, the track runner, was very well known for his 4 gold medals and his gold shoes, his gold Nike shoes.
Mm.
Really flashy. Ralph Lauren, for years, has actually been creating uh, the opening ceremony outfits for the Americans for quite a while. So a lot of different fashion choices there. Swift suits. Have you ever seen the people that have the hood that goes all the way up whenever they go to run because it makes them aerodynamic and it's like
Yeah,
bodysuit?
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Those actually didn't really start to come into vogue until like the 90s, 2000. There was an Australian lady that they went through a whole bunch of science with it to get her in this specific kind of fabrics and
Because the
everything to make
ice
it work.
skate racers, they do that same sort of thing,
Yes,
right?
yeah, so that you can really cut through the wind
Ice skate
a lot better.
racers.
Yes,
It's called something
So
else.
Swift suits, speed skating. Yeah.
Thank you
So
very much.
now I want all of you. You have one homework assignment. That homework assignment is to Google Norway curling pants.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they have the brightest, craziest. Like, if you think I wear crazy pajama pants, you have no idea.
Norway curling
It's
pants.
Norway curling pants. Yes, you will not be sorry. Now, the other thing that I take it back. 2 things. Olympic skeleton helmets. They put like, because when you're doing skeleton, they see the top of your helmet. And so because you're going head first down a slick mountain, right?
Wow.
And so and they would have like Spider-Man, or they would have like all
Okay,
kinds of
right.
really
Like
great
on
stuff.
the top of their head, the face. Okay.
Yep, yeah. And
Like Voldemort.
Crystal said there should be some Hermes Hermes shoes. You know, the messenger god who put wings on the shoes. Yes, it was very similar to that. The gold shoes that Michael Johnson wore, you could almost imagine like there were wings on them. And then, of course, figure skating. We mentioned the Katarina Witt role. And so, of course, we had lots of performers at the opening and closing ceremonies. So many of them. I mentioned John Williams composed, but of course, the Spice Girls coming back together was a very big deal. Katie Lang, I'll never forget her performing at the Calgary Olympics, and she had all kinds of fringe all over her and just was a yeehaw girl. And I was like, I don't know who this is, but I need to know more about this human being. And so they have become just amazing. And then we could get probably an entire episode out of Gojira in Paris in 2024
Mm-hmm.
at the place where Marie Antoinette getting her head cut off, and they have all these head cut off ladies like
Right. Oh my God. I
mouth
remember.
lip
Yes.
syncing and like explosions and blood looking things
Yeah.
happening, and it was metal. Yes,
Yeah.
I might be able to do just an entire mini episode on how amazing Gojira was in that. And I was just like, win all the awards. I want to give them a gold medal for this. And I hope that they won like a Grammy or something for presenting it, because it was that good. Oh yeah,
Gold medal
and
for metal.
let's not forget Marina, the opera singer, singing opera over it, wearing her little
Yeah,
hat and like
that was
coming
insane.
across on that ship that they were just like skating through. No, amazing. I love Gojira. Of course, Lady Gaga, no slouch either, singing in French and dancing around along the
And
Seine.
the whole thing's set on that river on
Yeah,
either
absolutely.
sides of it.
Oh yeah, and just Paul McCartney when he was in London appearing, and George Michael and Muse, and like the UK and the London Olympics really brought out all the stops. As many famous musicians as they could cram
They're
on
all
the
there.
stage, they crammed them on. And of course, Alanis played for a Canadian one. Celine Dion played for a Canadian one, but she also played for the French one and had come back to singing after she hadn't been there for a very long time. Ah, yes. Inger says, artists for Olympics, look up at Ernie Barnes. So there's another third homework item. Ernie Barnes, artists for Olympics.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And so Kiss appeared at Utah. I don't know what Utah has to do
course
with
they
Kiss,
did.
but of course, yes, absolutely. And so Neil Young was at the Canadian one as well. I was kind of surprised at that. And I think after that, at the very end of it all, the venue, the stadium, I will mention my favorite cauldron lighting was in Barcelona. Do you remember the guy that had the bow and arrow? And
No.
they lit the arrow on fire and he shot it.
That's so boss.
And it went so far and like just lit the thing. So I'll try to find that video and post it. It's amazing and awesome. We talked about our venues a little bit. We talked about unity and friendship. And at the end of the closing ceremonies, they would hand it off to the next people. The flame would live on. They, of course, run around with the flame, and we didn't even get to talk about that part of it. And so, of course, like we've also
I did
mentioned,
get to see them running with a torch.
tons of sponsors. Of course, we had Coca-Cola, Levi's, McDonald's, Nike, a little bit of Coca-Cola there, or Coke Bears. So we are out of time. I have exactly 1 minute left, which means I have exactly enough time to say what we're going to do for next week. Next week is going to sound weird, but we'll talk about it more. Weird holidays, because we have coming up a non-weird holiday. I don't think St.
I
Patrick's
just
Day
love
is
how you
weird,
said
but
it's
isn't
gonna sound weird.
but isn't
It's weird holidays.
but isn't Pi Day kind of weird? Isn't Star Wars Day kind of weird?
Oh yeah,
And then the other thing is we'll do some more, different
Pi Day
holidays.
more so than Star Wars Day.
Exactly. And so we'll do some other things like, why do we celebrate Christmas when we do? Why do we celebrate Easter? Why do we celebrate, why do we have Mother's and Father's Day? Like, was that created by Hallmark Company? Is that something we can
and
talk about?
grandmother's days and
And
grandfather's
siblings
days
day,
yeah,
and we have Stone Cold Steve Austin Day. That's 3/16.
see,
Yeah, so there's a whole set of days, and we're gonna have some fun with that. Like you said, Pi Day, National Cat Day, International Cat Day, lots of options. So weird holidays is gonna be the name of that. So guys, thank you so much
Thanks,
for
guys.
listening. Thank you for sticking around through the entire thing. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun trying to put it together. We'll put up extra videos and all kinds of stuff, and we'll have another fun one. Tell your friends, like, subscribe. I'm definitely going to try to keep everything coming up. At this point, with the video and the way that we have it going, it looks a little bit like, Max Headroom, I guess. We'll go ahead and leave it that way because it glitches once in a while.
yeah.
And I mean, I
don't,
know
it's
I'm not as
way
cool.
better than
I'm not
what
as
it
cool
was.
as Max Headroom, but, that's kind of how we're going to leave it. So, all right,
Mm.
we are at the top of the hour. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time. And Olympics out. Thanks, man.